tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
This change continues into next week with overall cooler temperatures in the southern interior.
Wildfire crews brace for a shift in the weather and beg long weekend travelers to avoid areas on evacuation order and alert. Also,
and it's those extremes which is really worrying.
From salmon streams to farm fields, BC's drought conditions are wreaking havoc. And
we can't guarantee there isn't more big stuff wanting to come down there right now, so that's probably the big concern.
On edge, a major rockfall in Squamish has locals worried.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. Homicide investigators are looking into the death of a one-year-old child in New Westminster. Police say the infant was found unresponsive on 5th Avenue near 13th Street early in the morning last Saturday. They called the circumstances suspicious and are speaking with family and friends to figure out more about what happened. They say there's no ongoing risk to the public. We'll have any updates on this story on our website, cbc.ca/BC. We now know 70% of the sudden deaths during last month's heat dome were directly related to the heat. 570 fatalities. Nearly 80% of those who died in the extreme heat were 65 and older, and many of them lived with underlying health conditions, making them even more vulnerable to that extreme heat. BC's chief coroner says some people died sitting in their living rooms with all the doors and windows closed and temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius. Vancouver and other cities have since changed their heat wave management after intense criticism and to try to minimize deaths this time. And as temperatures rise again over the next few days, cities are reopening cooling centers to provide some relief. Vancouver will have more than a dozen locations open during the heat warning, including the Carnegie and Mount Pleasant community centers and various library branches. As of today, Burnaby will have 4 locations open daily from 11 to 7 p.m. The Greg Moore Youth Center in Maple Ridge is also open for those needing to escape the heat there. And several rec centers and libraries have been designated as places to cool down in Surrey. You can find a full list with exact locations and times on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Now, it's not just the heat in BC causing problems. A record-breaking dry spell has parts of the province in severe drought. As Greg Rasmussen reports, it's having impacts everywhere from salmon streams to farm fields.
It's a desperate attempt to rescue young salmon.
Any fish coming to you, Jack?
A few weeks ago, this was a stream full of cool, fresh water. Now the salmon fry that live here are stranded.
Yeah, there's some wee tiny one there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, got a few.
Some.
The conservation group Squamish Stream Keepers keeps a close eye on water levels.
So here's one.
These are coho fry.
Netting stranded fish and scooping them into buckets.
I think it's crucial. Otherwise, they would just die. And, well, we got 1,000 today, and we'll get probably 5,000 fish before we're finished.
You know, sometimes we come too late, and then we, on the dry riverbed, you got hundreds of little fish dead.
Spawning fish are also suffering, such as these sockeye salmon in Washington State, physically stressed by the drought that's hitting much of the West. In BC, parts of the coast, the southern interior, and the southeast are seeing the highest level of drought in years. The dust is flying at this normally lush organic farm, which grows a mix of vegetables and small fruits. Some crops have been scorched and discarded.
Would be 15 to 20% crop loss so far this year, especially in our lettuce. Like, we're up to almost a third of our lettuce crop we've lost, and lettuce is a big portion of our farm's income and cash flow.
There's been no rain and no relief is on the horizon.
And I know a lot of other farmers did have to go into triage mode just like we did.
So how unusual is this then?
Well, this is getting precarious.
In an unusually dry Vancouver bog, this climate expert says BC's drought is just one of many unusual weather patterns around the world, being driven by climate change.
Well, that's going to be the norm. And the thing is, it's not going to be just continuously increase, it's going to be continuous variability. And it's those extremes which is really worrying.
The bottom line, the need to adapt and cope, such as helping those rescued salmon fry.
There's food, lots of food, it's clean water, and there's lots of places to hide and stuff like that.
A new home in troubled times,
Here they come.
in hopes of surviving this drought.
Bon voyage, yes.
Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Squamish, BC.
Johanna is off this week, so meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at the weather. We're still very dry, Colette.
Dan, it's not just even that we hit these records or these markers, but we keep adding dry days on and expanding them. And that's really what we're going to be seeing for the next few days. Now, as for some rain in the short term, a better chance for the interior as we go into this holiday weekend. And I'll show you that. I want to show you for now. I think you know you're getting used to this. High pressure in place, not only not seeing rain, but the cloud cover not there as well. The smoke, well, that's a whole different story. So our heat warnings have expanded, still for Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley, and Canyon, but we've been seeing these expanding up the north and central coast here, so be aware of that towards North Thompson as well. So some other areas pulled into it. Still some high temperatures in other areas, but just maybe not quite meeting the warning criteria there. So that's why we have the special weather statement, Greater Victoria area included in the special weather statement, air quality statement for smoky conditions and some ozone in there as well, some of the pollution mixing. So seeing that kind of expanding westward, and perhaps as we go into the weekend, maybe even a little bit tomorrow, it may edge out towards Whistler, Abbotsford, towards Greater Vancouver. The possibility is there, and stretch up towards Bella Coola. Now, this one thing that smoke can do is actually cap some of the temperatures from not getting as hot as they would in the southern interior. They're certainly warm enough. Lytton getting close to that 40 degrees and may actually hit it, and we'll be seeing our peak really for Vancouver, especially inland, for that Friday, Saturday. And by the way, the interior, the temperatures bump back up again on Monday after a little break into Sunday. So a look at where those chances for some rain showers. This particular model, you see it wants to give some little spotty light sprinkles. I'm not really anticipating this. It'd be great. More I see cloud cover moving in. I'm more hopeful for this of what we're seeing into the, so this is Saturday night into Sunday morning into the southern interior. All right, a look at your recap then for your 7 days. Peak heat here, temperatures coming down, chance 30%, but it's there for mid next week, Dan.
Okay, we'll take it. Thanks, Colette. Wildfire crews say they are bracing for a change in the weather that could help them with the hundreds of blazes burning across BC. As Colette mentioned, it's rain, but with that comes risks. Crews say hot weather today and tomorrow will bring more fire growth, including overnight. But on Saturday and Sunday, they expect that change. More fresh air is set to flow into the interior ahead of that. That will cause some fires to grow. The clear out of the smoke, though, will allow air crews to better attack those fires. Officials say they've been hampered this week. Beyond that,
However, we also anticipate some lightning and are monitoring this closely for new fire starts. The incoming system will have some rain, and this change continues into next week with overall cooler temperatures in the southern interior.
and that rain will be better news for areas already suffering through drought, as we've seen. Crews also have a message for people who plan to travel this BC Day-long weekend. Be careful. Watch for road closures. Don't go to areas under evacuation order or alerts. And even in the cooler northern part of our province, officials warn people not to do anything that could spark a wildfire. While most of the 245 active wildfires in BC are naturally caused, crews note 15 are deemed human-caused, and they don't want any more. Speaking of travel, if you were hoping to board a ferry out of Tsawwassen tonight without a reservation, think again. All ferries are full between Victoria and Nanaimo until tomorrow. Only the Horseshoe Bay terminal has some room later tonight, sailing to Nanaimo. BC Ferries say they're expecting big crowds this long weekend and ask you to check ahead if you don't have a reservation. A powerful earthquake, more powerful in fact than any other since 1965, hit off the Alaska coast last night, creating tsunami concerns in BC and sending Alaskans scrambling for shelter. The U.S. Geological Survey measured an 8.2 magnitude quake more than 90 kilometers off the coast. Here in BC, people waited anxiously for news of a possible tsunami. while about 800 people in Kitimat moved to higher ground as a precaution. Tsunami worries have since dropped in all coastal communities. The worst of the quake damage reported in Alaska is said to be minor. A major rockfall in Squamish has people there on edge. Eva Yugwen-Senge is speaking with experts who warn with more warm weather, the risk of splintering rock is high.
There's kind of a brown stain where we can see where the rock was.
It happened in the dead of night.
We've never seen anything of that size come off the wall, certainly in the 45 years I've been climbing on the wall.
A huge section of the Squamish Chief cracked off just after midnight on Monday, leaving a gash across the rock face where the popular Grand Wall climbing route should be.
The base has some pretty popular routes that I've climbed on before, so being anywhere in the area would have been devastating.
Luckily, no one was injured, but locals are still on edge.
When I came by yesterday, there were people walking up to have a look at the debris, and you know, we can't guarantee there isn't more big stuff wanting to come down there right now.
A section of rock fell from the same area just a month ago. BC Parks has closed access until a geotechnical assessment is done, but some already have a theory about what's causing the rock falls, and it's connected to summer heat.
You put water in, it expands, and then it contracts, breaks the rock apart. Here, the crystals during the day heat up, expand, and then they contract, so there's now space between the rocks, and that causes a weaker layer.
Overhanging rocks and sun exposure make the Chief particularly risky. With more heat on the way, the wall is a high-risk zone, and climbers are adjusting.
What I've been thinking about is staying out of rock that's in direct sun exposure, because then we're getting expansion and it's something to avoid. But yeah, maybe shady areas and things that are less steep.
It's just not safe. Yeah. You shouldn't go there like at any time of the day. Like, it surely happens more in the morning or at night. It's what we notice, so maybe we're gonna change our schedule.
Even with the expansion theory, it's impossible to predict exactly where and when another rockfall could occur. Eva Yugwen-Senge, CBC News, Squamish.
One person has died after trying to jump from a balcony to escape an apartment fire in Chilliwack.
I couldn't believe how fast it went. Well, it's a building about 40 years old or more, and it just went up like matches.
The fire broke out just after 1 a.m. near First Avenue and Hazel Street. 50 firefighters fought to tackle the flames. Crews were able to contain the fire and used a ladder to save several people trapped on balconies. But as we said, one person died trying to jump to safety. It's still not clear what sparked the fire. A 29-year-old man has been arrested and charged after what's called a brutal attack on a Skytrain worker in an employee crew room.
The man positioned himself directly beside the crew room door and allegedly began rubbing his genitals. As the Skytrain attendant opened the crew room door, the man quickly forced his way in, allegedly punching her in the stomach before shoving her to the ground.
This all happened Sunday morning at Braid Skytrain station in New Westminster. Police say the suspect followed the attendant to the room before attacking her. She was able to fight back and radio for help. Transit police arrested Howard Geddes Skelding as he tried to leave the station. He's now charged with 1 count of assault with a weapon. Transit police have also recommended charges of sexual assault and forcible confinement. A Vancouver police officer is recovering today after being hit by a speeding car during a traffic stop. It happened yesterday afternoon near New Brighton Park in East Vancouver.
The officer motioned for this driver to pull over. However, the driver sped up and drove at the officer. Our member then fell onto the roadway while trying to get out of the way of the suspect vehicle, but was hit by that vehicle.
Police said the Toyota Corolla was spotted going 96 in a 50 zone. The officer was taken to hospital and has been released. The driver was arrested at the scene, and police have recommended several charges. Anyone who saw the crash or has dash cam footage at the time is asked to contact police. BC recorded 204 new confirmed COVID-19 cases today, the highest figures since June 5th. Our rolling average has now tripled in 12 days. Thankfully, we have no new deaths. Of those new cases, 107 are in the Interior Health Region, where new masking rules have been reimposed in the Central Okanagan. 51 people are in hospital, 20 in critical care. Now, the rising number of cases, especially in the interior, has modeling experts urging everyone to get fully vaccinated before fall weather forces us back inside.
We're concerned about seeing those rising cases and ultimately putting that pressure back on the healthcare system again. I think something we all want to avoid.
Researchers say while unvaccinated people act as potential hosts, the coronavirus will continue to mutate. Those new mutations could possibly become resistant to the current vaccines. Close to 1 million people in BC still aren't fully vaccinated. August 1st, 1834 was the day slavery was abolished throughout the British Empire. Now the first will mark Emancipation Day here in BC.
We as the government must do more to raise awareness of the past and present successes of BC's growing Black population, and also recognize the historical wrongs that the community has experienced.
Singh says the proclamation is a commitment to dismantle racism for Black and other racialized people. The government is working on the province's first anti-racism act. Burnaby man is sharing his past struggles with homelessness and addictions through a graphic memoir he has illustrated. The CBC's Colette Kennedy tells us Tower 25 is a gesture of empathy and hope for those who are struggling.
The first time I got high, drugs plugged the hole in my heart.
It was on the edge of California's beaches where Burnaby's PJ Patton became addicted to meth and then homeless. These urine-stained public washrooms by the Lifeguard Tower 25 were PJ's temporary home from 2004 to 2005.
Just go in there, lay down, put my backpack like basically at the base of the toilet and have my feet curled up. So there was enough like my feet braced against the door. And like I said, the door's locked, which is the main reason I was sleeping in there. Every night it was just another thing that I was crying about or sad about or angry about. I mean, I spent a lot of time just screaming at the ocean when no one was there.
PJ's battle to become sober was draining, but he had a thought that would soon change his life.
I had always kind of had this fantasy about becoming a monk when I was a little kid. So then I started looking at Buddhist temples, Buddhist monasteries.
And PJ found one, hiring people with a background in construction and art. He applied, spending his last $2 in an internet cafe.
I was terrified when I looked at the application because it was like, do I lie? Do I tell the truth? And so I told the truth and I said I was homeless.
And he was hired.
I just, you know, I was, I guess, just in shock that these people had accepted me, you know.
But the night PJ slept with the good news, he got caught sleeping by a guard and was expected in court in 3 weeks. Frustrated and hopeless, his first instinct was to find drugs to ease his pain. But he stopped himself.
My book is laid out like how my personal journals are. Just kind of getting all these memories out of my head because I feel like I hadn't had time to process them really. Then I thought maybe it would be helpful to other people too.
PJ spent nearly 10 years working at a Buddhist retreat in Northern California before meeting his wife in 2014 on a meditation retreat in Whistler. He moved to Burnaby, and here she encouraged him to write his graphic memoir. PJ says he is one of the lucky ones, with friends who had and still are checking in on him. He knows not every person does, and so he hopes his memoir encourages people to treat those struggling with compassion, even if it simply starts with a smile. Colette Kennedy, CBC News, Burnaby.
The Tokyo Olympics are on, as we know, and CBC is home to the Games. That means some rather big changes to our programming this week and next. A half-hour edition of our newscast will be on CBC television at 3 p.m. Monday to Friday with Anita Bath. And then at 6 p.m., we will stream this newscast on CBC Gem, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as on our website, cbc.ca/BC, with yours truly. Our late and weekend newscasts are taking a break throughout the Olympics. Thanks for joining us this evening. Our next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. And Isabel Vergam will be your host for this newscast tomorrow night. We'll take you back to Tokyo, where it's mid-morning and Day 7 events are well underway. Good night. Enjoy the long weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy the Games.